Okay, so I am going to call us to order at 6:01 tonight. And if everyone would just, oh, here comes Christine. Okay. Okay. So if everyone would just do a roll call, announce their presence. Okay.
Dean Briggs here.
Alan Pratt here.
Gloria Parkinson here.
Christine Latini here.
Dave Notaro here.
And Jim Webster
Dave
here.
Notaro here.
Okay. So Christine, I just pressed the record button. Okay. So and I know that we are going to move fairly briskly. So first of all, first order of business, we have actually the minutes of September and August, because I realized that we tabled August. So what is your pleasure? Do you want to take them one at a time or together? Or do you need
I'm
a
good.
moment?
Personally, I'm good taking them both at the same time.
Same time? Okay. So did you make a motion
Yeah,
to that
I can
effect,
make that
Dave?
motion.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept the August and September 2025 minutes as published.
I second it.
Okay. 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 Do you need a moment, everyone, to scan them, or have you?
Gloria, I
already
see my
did.
name. I see my name as being in attendance in September, but I'm pretty sure I missed September's meeting. I went back on my calendar just now, and I don't think I was able to be at September's meeting.
Okay. But your presence hung over us, so I obviously felt you there, Alan.
Okay.
The same is true
Okay.
for me.
Mhm.
I was not in attendance at September.
Why did I have a total? Okay. All right. So you're all right. I'm remembering now. So we're amending that neither Alan nor Christine. You know what? I obviously took that from another. I did my bad. Okay. Anything else? And then you can do an amended motion, Dave, if you don't mind, when everyone's happy with content.
Sure, once everyone's happy.
Anyone else have
Everyone
any?
good?
Yeah,
I'm good.
no.
Well, looks good. I'm good.
Okay, so Dave, would you
Okay.
like to do an amended?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the amended September 2025 minutes and the published August 2025 minutes.
I second the motion, Alan.
Okay. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Dean,
Roll
aye.
call vote. Mhm. Okay.
Alan,
Gloria,
Christine,
aye.
aye.
Dave,
Jim,
aye.
aye.
Dave and Jim came in as a double act, but I heard you. Okay,
Oh.
approved. All right, now let's move along then. Okay. Just let me not lose that. Okay, so some updates, everybody, that I circulated today. Obviously, you all have done brilliantly on a lot of conservation stuff this month. Really, really superb. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we've settled down on some other programs we'll get to later. Okay. So, first of all, let's begin. Equipment maintenance. How are we doing?
I pulled a tire off the rim yesterday, but was able to. Well, with that, yeah, I pulled the tire off the rim of the Billy Goat yesterday, but was able to find the spare that Jim had set aside and mounted that on there, and then took the tire in for repair, so I can pick that up at Dupuy at my leisure. Other than that, that's all I know.
Yeah, and in other news, after I spoke with you, Dean, I ordered a better tire pump for the barn, one of your stand-up pump ones. And I do have a power pump that I can run off a car battery in my truck if we ever need it. But the stand-up pump should be good for most of what we need.
Sorry, Jim, you ordered it from Dupuy or online?
No, I ordered it from Amazon on my own nickel. It's only like $25 or whatever. So when I get it, I'll put it in the barn. And I ordered it in bright yellow so we can find it.
Nice.
All right. Apart from that, everything seems to be, the wheels are going around everywhere else, right? Um, and again, I know that you're beginning to look at, some of the Sam Bell stuff. I know piecemeal. So thank you. We don't need to comment individually on it. We've agreed that I'm doing nothing, but you guys will nibble your way at what have been the conservation mow areas, especially to make sure that the woody growth, gets its head chopped off. Is that correct?
Can I just comment, when I was up there, what day were they? Sunday, and walked down into the grassland. Looked like most of the goldenrod is pretty close to done now, but there was still quite a bit of those little purple asters out. So for mowing, let's just try to mow around anything like that that's still doing well. And I'm sure in another week they'll probably all be pretty much gone anyway.
Interestingly enough, those yellow asters, those purpley asters,
Yeah.
they can keep going into November.
And well, to the
Yeah.
best we can, let's try to mow around them. But I mean, on the other hand, we have to be realistic. If there's an area that's being taken over by, bittersweet or something, we have to do what we have to do.
There's also a hard freeze coming Thursday night into Friday, which might eliminate the problem entirely.
That will be the end of all of that then, yes.
Oh, thank you for your.
Interesting.
Oh, and
Thursday and
also-
Friday.
And there's a potential nor'easter coming Sunday, maybe into Monday, so.
Okay. I guess summer's over.
Wow.
All right. So thanks for the update.
I cut through to the just to let folks know, I'd cut through to the down tree in the backside of the what we call the wet meadow. And nowhere was it wet. Even in the lowest parts, it was bone dry.
Even our stream on the edge of between the grassland and the railroad bed, that I've seen it all the time we've had it, I've seen that dry up twice before, but only for like a month and then fill up again. And that's been dry since July. So hopefully if we get a nor'easter, that will help fill it up again before winter. But that's been the driest I've ever seen it.
Okay. Pasture. Okay, I'm just making a quick note. Okay, great. So I did mention in when we get to okay, I'm sort of moving on to the sort of land management, climate resiliency, the wetlands, the grasslands, etc. I would like to try and still have Dave Cowell, at least I need to understand what those maps are, because when David Cowell did that check down with me in about the transitioning to wetlands, right, of the forest, he did say that there's ways you can sort of anticipate, there's maps that will show you how you can actually see that ahead of time with the likely places. So it's just like, and I don't know how to do that.
Can I simply say, the path that we have that goes down the side of the grassland on the side that's closest to the rail bed, that goes way down toward the end, we got bird boxes along there. It's not rocket science. We just need to make a small loop. I can mow it myself. I don't need a weatherman to know which way the wind blows. We just need to know like a small turnaround loop in the upland area so it just loops back on itself. We don't need to have an expert out there mapping it for us. We've been putting it off all summer for
Right,
no good reason that I can see. It's
Actually,
easy
I
enough to
wasn't-
see where the
okay.
upland is.
Yeah, Jim, I didn't make what I said clear enough. It's about not that we're looking at, but anticipating things, even what are likely to keep transitioning that we have no idea about. There apparently are maps that can help with that. So, I'm talking about real advance looking forward but I don't actually know what he's talking about, which is why I would like to sit with him in the library and look at those maps.
But I am simply saying, that trail that goes down there, we, honest to God, we don't need to have an engineer to tell us how to just pump a little loop around back again. So we just have a little, think of a number 6 at the end of that trail, around back onto itself, all with an upland dry area. It's not, any of us can see it. I mean, we've been mowing there for years. We know what we're doing,
Okay. Okay. So moving along. The woodlands, okay. I'm not sure, Christine, that you were in the text message I sent people, so I will make sure I get this information to you.
Okay,
This is what piqued my curiosity, which was the research saying that the white pines have this symbiotic relationship with the firs, right? And I'm just throwing it out there, so we might just look at our forest stewardship plan, because if I'm interpreting it correct, it basically says, oh, those they're weeds. The foresters seem to
No,
describe them as weeds.
no, but that's not what it says. What it says is there's areas where there's a lot of right now hardwood that if we allow those white pines to run rampant, those white pines will climb up, shadow out the overstory, and then hold back those hardwoods. So it's not a matter of eliminating the white pines, but we have areas where there's a whole lot of young white pines that need to be thinned out, not
Okay.
not desecrated, but thinned out, so that we have open sky above around some of those hardwood trees. That's what it says in the management plan, and that's what we were planning to do in the spring, but never got to, and are hoping to get to, in the next week or two.
So again, slightly rephrasing the question, do we know areas of white pine that are not the hardwood, but are by firs? Do we have a sense that and I'm not saying to answer the question now, I'm literally just raising the question
Yeah.
based on that study that came out. In other words, are there other areas of white pines, not by the hardwoods, not that we have popping up by fir trees? And is it worth looking at?
Well, so
Again,
white pine and fir to me are interchangeable. We're talking about, those kinds of trees. The white, as opposed to the hardwood trees with leaves, we're talking about the white pines with needles, right? That are taking over, or have taken over much of that whole central area we preserve for wildlife is almost heavily white pine, but there are areas of that, especially when you get over towards the DCR side, that where that younger growth is, where there's lots of hardwood trees doing their best to, become hardwood trees, where the plan as written is actually telling us to thin out the white pines to open up the overstory for those.
okay.
There's older areas way up the top of that hill that's very heavily white pine, lots and lots of way too much white pine, where again, the management plan says we should, especially where there's nearby hardwood trees, selectively thin some of those out. But because those trees are well established, that would require girdling some of those trees. But again, selectively, we're not decimating the forest. But if you have one of those that's next to a couple of promising, oak or maple trees, we could open up some sky there. We should work on that. But we're talking about starting something now that 5, 10 years from now that will basically clear up that overstory and make more room for the hardwoods. But in no way are we planning to decimate the white pines.
Okay.
Lori,
I can see,
Lori, yeah.
I can see
Lori,
Dean, yes.
I haven't had a chance to read the text about the white pines and the firs I think you're referring to,
Yeah.
so I can't
Okay,
really
so let's
comment on
just
that myself.
right, and I can see Dean nodding about this is, I think, possibly just, I'm asking the question, it's just a moot point. We don't so in other words, that text is just more of interest. It's more about hearing about how trees do communicate, despite I would like to just make an observation, because Dean Brett said, wasn't the books about? Yes, there was. And what was funny, and since there've been more literature about, the language of trees, but when I first read the book and I talked to some foresters, because it was about, Rauscher Farm, well, they absolutely scoffed and poo-pooed the idea of trees communicating chemically with each other. And of course, then as the years roll.
The area we flagged in the spring to work is exactly the kind of area that you're talking about in those articles and books, where there's a lot of hardwood trees there that we would like to encourage. There's also a lot of white pine, and just left to its own devices, even though they're talking to each other underground or whatever they're doing, those white pines, just from what we've seen up the hilltop, which is older, those white pines will just take over everything and not leave much chance for anything else. So the goal here, at least what it says in the forestry plan, is to get an area like that and encourage more of the hardwoods to thrive while we eliminate the overabundance of white pines, not eliminate to thin those out. We have multiple areas like that where we have, younger white pines, well, if we thin them out where there's nearby hardwoods, we can encourage some of those hardwoods to survive. Especially
So,
especially things like oak that have nuts for the wildlife, you know?
yeah, I know, I hear you. I was just responding to Dean's comment that was said about, the foresters finally had to give up scoffing at it. That was all. So I tried not to chuckle at that. Okay, so we're fine. It was a moot point. We move on. I bow to your greater judgment of knowing exactly where the white pines are popping up in numbers we don't want. Okay, so more research needed is no. Okay, on
I'm
the
going to say one more
discussion.
thing on that. I'm going to send out an email and see if we can pick a day, maybe next week for another chainsaw party to do that tree that you cleared a path to, Dean, and time permitting, also start on some of that thinning out that we, wanted to start before it got too hot, but then it got too hot.
Okay, well,
Sounds good.
do you want to try fixing an approximate date now, or just, I think do it
Why
by
don't I do
email?
it by email and we
Okay,
can compare calendars and also look at the weather and decide,
yeah.
maybe toward the end of next week would be good, if not the week after, but
Mm.
but it's time to get going on that.
Because it looks like if this storm does hit, it goes into the beginning of the week
Yeah, it
as
looks like
well.
maybe Sunday, Monday, but
Right,
it's hard to say. And
right.
they make it, if it's like a typical nor'easter, it could linger for a few days, which actually would be very nice because we really need the rain, but.
Okay, so via email for the chainsaw party. All right, moving on. Barn electricity, I haven't got hold of National Grid. They are notoriously very hard to get hold of an actual person. I have learned this from Lee Abdullah. So, give me some leeway on that one. You know, rather than endlessly chasing my own tail on a telephone loop. Okay, but I know it's still on my action item. We haven't right now. The history of the building slightly got sidetracked, and also following it with the development of the property. So they are still action items. Okay. Most of you know we actually got the willow plants, right? I'm hoping I'm moving along here. Okay. Yeah, we got the willow plants from Giancarlo, and we posted said willow plants of the morning when we did the first of the two walkway deprived the grass of photosynthesis projects. So one of them, which is it's very iffy, I think, if it'll survive, but we can go on, give it good juju or something over it and see what happens. But the others have all been planted at the same time as it's been a really, that project's been really good for volunteers. So the first session, because I'm moving along here, had 9 volunteers, and the second session had 14. So we did it. We mission accomplished, and not just mission accomplished from there, but we had some spare labor that went with Jim and cleaned out the bluebird boxes. So before not only a hard frost arriving, but knee-deep snow, which has sometimes been our MO. So that was a wonderful, very productive, right? And for those of you who are on Facebook, you see that I now try and post all these hot to trot volunteer activities.
Jim,
So
did you find it? What did you find for nests in the bird boxes?
Well, actually, the good thing, David Ammerman actually came and joined us, and he's our, resident bird expert. So mostly what we found were the, what do they call, the tree swallows. But there was at least one of those boxes, probably two, that looked like it had at least 2 nests, and one looked like it had 3, one on top of the other in there. So, and you can see some of the nests were twigs and some were softer stuff, and it's like I can't remember which is which. The twigs are, Gloria probably knows, she has a map someplace, but the
a
twiggy
picture
ones
of
are
it,
one kind of
yes.
bird and the other ones are others, but it looks like they were mostly tree swallows, but there was at least one that probably, one or two that might have had bluebirds, even if they weren't the original tenants, who moved in at some point. In one
So
of those
Alan,
boxes,
I'm sorry,
one,
Alan, to your point, each year it's not unusual to see multi-occupancy, layered occupancy.
Yeah, good.
And you
one
did
of
it
those,
last year, I remember, yeah.
Yeah,
one of those boxes, Alan, I think you did a sort of a klutz fix on it last year we needed, has a bracket on the back that's slipping down the post.
yes,
I
yeah,
wedged a couple of little sticks under it. It's really not going to hold.
yeah.
I need to get out there with a power drill and a couple of other brackets and do a better job. But I think there is another bird box in the barn someplace that somebody collected years ago and put there. If possible, next time I'm up there, I might try to swap that box for the one that's on there because the wood is getting so rotted out in the back, the screws aren't holding is, I think, the issue. And we're probably close to having to get a new set of bird boxes somehow over the next couple of years.
But actually, that's a good idea. We should look for, again, I don't see Boy Scouts very active in Clinton, but we could put out a word for someone, beyond Clinton who might want a project to do that. What do you think?
Yeah, and it's
Sometime.
something that I don't want to volunteer for because I got so many other things to do, but it's ideally you need somebody with a table saw that knows what they're doing and won't
Mhm.
chop off their fingers and just mass produce the parts and then screw them together, but it's, things have to be cut at angles on a table saw is really the only way to do it, which
And
isn't
that's why we did
hard,
it
but
last time as the
yeah,
Eagle Scout
yeah,
project,
yeah,
because there were parental units that
right,
had the table that had the equipment.
right.
So we can revisit it. It's not immediate, but that's an idea. If we think that we're getting close to needing to replace them, it might be better to replace them sooner before they all collapsed. Yeah?
Yeah.
Makes
Mhm.
sense, gang? Okay. Um, okay, so invasive species, right? I'm on a bull thistle tear.
Can I
Okay.
comment on that? Can I comment on that too? Because I
Yeah.
was already thinking about that earlier in the summer. Those bull thistles that were moving in all around the pollinator meadow. We already had some in that field, but that 20 yards of dirt we got came in loaded with, guess what? Bull thistles, it turns out. And as we pulled them and tossed them over the fence, guess what happened? Everything outside became a forest of bull thistles. So we did on the work party over the weekend. I managed to pull the ones that were around the fence. And one of those, you'll see if you look, there's a taproot that's like, huge. It's like 2 feet long. Um, and I had everybody toss them all in the same place. You'll see there's a great big pile. But unfortunately, because it's this late in the year, they all have those sticky, nasty things that get all over your clothes and all over the animals and gets tracked all over the farm to make more bull thistles. We need to go forward. Um, all those areas where we have those other ones, we need to mow them early in the year and keep them mowed before they can go to seed like that. I think that's the only way we can handle them. Um, so I think
It,
over the
it
course
is
of the summer, we have to pick that area and just keep mowing them down and mowing them down right around that area.
it smacks to me of the multiflora rose strategy.
Yeah.
Because if you look, I hadn't realized not just the ones around the pollinator, but if you look at the ones that are growing, a few feet beyond,
Yeah.
they like the multiflora rose, they're a mass, like a wall of thistles, right? All
Yeah,
tight, tight, tight.
but even when we first got the property, there were a few on that pasture, not many, sort of scattered around. But now all around that meadow, we have them just proliferating, which I'm sure is because of that low. Remember, we dumped that
Yeah.
dirt, and then a few months later, all the stuff growing up in it. We pulled it, they all had tap roots that looked like carrots. Well, guess what they grew up to be? They grew up to be bull thistles. We
Both.
found out the hard way.
So my note on my discussion document out to you is there are native thistles. Okay, I don't know a huge amount about them, but there are native thistles that pollinators love. But again, it's that whole thing that the aggressive invasives thistles will grow about 49 times faster than the natives, which is why I was proposing that we investigate some native thistles and we help them out by putting them inside the fence because that
I'm not
means
I'm not sure because I know, like I said, when we got the property 18 years ago, there were very few scattered around that pasture on the hillside. Whether they are the native or invasives, I honestly don't know because they all look the same to me, right? But since we brought in that dirt, we just had that massive thing that's taking over. So the idea of encouraging more bull thistles of any kind to me just seems to me is just asking for trouble.
sorry, I'm not again, let me just clear my head here. I'm not suggesting and I'm suggesting we go find the native thistles externally. We don't attempt to guess which are bullfinch and which are natives. But I'm going to research and see if these native thistles have a vendor, a responsible vendor. And that because if you remember when the aforementioned bullfinches, they were covered in the bees. So it just might be something just to add to, we've got space. If we
But
can
my
find,
question is whether they're native or not native, do they all proliferate that way? If you give them a start, they take everything over. I don't know.
well, I'm just saying more research is needed. I don't know. I certainly know that one of the ones I mentioned is biannual, so it doesn't flower every year. So I'm talking about just like we researched other plants for the pollinator nursery garden, it's worth my time. Forget everybody else. I will research what are the pros and cons of possibly introducing some native thistles, and if they establish, how fast do they establish, and then do they lose their minds and go absolutely wild? But the articles I read talked about how they got outpaced by the others. So it's just a thought.
One suggestion I'd have is to take a two-phase approach to this.
Yeah.
It would be year one is to keep the bull thistle mowed as much as possible, and that may be a 2-year project because bull thistle is also a biennial. So whatever we had for a bloom this year that was like taking over the world, that was seed that was dormant in the soil that was received for the
Yeah.
pollinator garden. So it might be a 2-year process to help eradicate the bull thistle. At that point, maybe then we introduce the native thistle, however we want to do it based on the research. But to do them both at the same time, we may be competing against ourselves in a biennial
Okay.
cycle that's mismatched.
Yeah.
But if we can eradicate the bull thistle by mowing it over the next 2 years, that may give us a window to introduce native.
And the
Okay.
ones we just dealt with on the weekend, they were all gone to those nasty little pods with those things all over them. So there's hundreds of those all over that area right now, which means we have seeds everywhere to become more bull thistles, which means right now we have a huge seed bank there, aside from the plants that are still standing. So if we're going to try to mow those and eliminate them, it's going to take a few years, presumably, to mow down the ones that are sprouting up before they can go to seed again, you know?
Correct.
I think that's Christine's point, though. If we could try and, I'm just throwing out an idea. If there is a role for native thistles, either there or somewhere else, So, okay, so let's say that we just go, hot on the bullfinch thistles and see where we go after that. All right, does that make sense? Following Christine's point, that we just don't try to do the two things at the same time. And I'll try and find out more information, or you can research them about native thistles, and is there a role for them in developing pollinator resources? That's all. And I don't know the answer, which is needs research. Okay. All right. So on we go from my obsessive with the bull with the I have to not tell my Scottish friends what we are doing here, by the way, given that they are the native flower of Scotland. But then
It always
Scotland,
starts with talking about thistles, and before you know it, somebody's dumping on bagpipes. Seen it happen.
okay. Um, okay, so again, moving along here. Okay, so the universal access path. Okay, so thank you for your feedback, everybody. So Christine and I are going to sort of do a bit more on this, right? And one of the things that have come up purely tangentially through the library trustee library building tours is, when there's a certain there can be a certain, but I've heard it voiced. Well, how many ADA people are there? I mean, why all the fuss? And it occurs to me that this is where I had a brief exchange with Christine, and we have more thoughts as we go along here. It does need to be an all-person trail because it's not about necessarily people who have limited mobility and will never have improved mobility. It's about all sorts of other outlooks. People, again, the people with strollers, the people who had hip surgery, the people who had knees, and anything like that. So trying to actually spread the word that this is a much more inclusive activity to provide an all-person trail. So that's where we're sort of going to look at the text. All right. And then come back to you and see what you guys think, right? I don't know if you have any thoughts right now on it, but that's sort of where we're beginning to think, okay, so, and there's way too many of, unfortunately, my words on that front page, as Christine is always telling me. So we are going to reduce the volume of language on that front page. So it becomes really ping, 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 ping. All right, so that's the next draft, okay? Coming your way. Not today, though, or tomorrow. All right, you okay with that? So work in progress is,
Yep.
I think, is the
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
Okay, as for the moving along, okay, the opportunities is number 8, volunteer citizen scientist opportunity. We sort of covered that. We did have a lot of people come and help, as I said, earlier, and most of you were there popping, some there the whole time, some popping, coming and going, and it was great. There's no response yet from the school about a potential pollinator garden. And we heard about the box, so we had good opportunities for number 8. Okay, in terms of communication outreach. All right, so there was, the e-newsletter has gone out since the last meeting. That was focusing on a reminder about taking RF photographs. Another quick one will go out very soon, saying, don't forget to take photos. There will be the registration is going to be set up for that program, similar to what it was in the winter sow, except I have sent out an early bird special to those who attended the other sessions, the other photographic sessions, and that includes you, Ellen, too, and given them an advance warning to, if they let me know that they do want to exhibit, that will limit the number of registration slots on the library's website. And so what I think I was trying to work this out today, that I will therefore send those people who have already said, yes, we want to exhibit. And I've already heard back instantaneously from 4 people who want to exhibit. So Alan, you think about it and let me know. Okay. And then that number, whatever number of people, because I'm capping it as 20 entry registrants, that however I hear back from within like 24 hours, I will deduct that number as the top registration number on the library website, right? And send those people their own registration forms. Otherwise, they'll go and register on the library website, and it'll get really confusing because then they'll be double dipping on the registration forms. That makes sense?
Is that 20 registrations times up to 2 entries each? I'm not sure what the rules are
Yes.
here. Okay.
That's 40 pictures. And we also have, as well as the people I've heard from already with the early bird special, we also have David Ammerman, who reached out some weeks ago and said, yes, he wants to do that. So again, so that is at least 5. And then Alan, if you come in, if you want to be part of that, that would be 6, meaning what appears on the library website would be 14, not 20, right? And then if you guys want to go in, if Christine, you want to go, you get to be the early bird specials too. So if Christine or Jim or me, and remember, or Dean, we are entitled to be individuals enjoying Rauscher Farm at the same time as we are the constant worker bees. We do get to have some playtime, right?
My plan is I will dig out a couple of pictures, but hold in reserve so other people, go first. And if there's a hole, I'll fill it, but otherwise I'll step back.
Okay, so I'm not going to count you in. But just email me in the next 24 hours, okay?
I will.
Okay. And Dean, I don't know if you've got pictures. I don't know. I mean, anyway, I'm
Nothing
just,
recent.
I'm just explaining so that otherwise. Hmm? Hello, someone? The reason I'm mentioning it now is because working with the person in the library who was setting up the registration, we're working with someone else because the person who did it for the winter sow has gone off to get married. We have to let her get married and not worry about us, right? So, so we're working with another. Wonderful, but she is part-time, so she is only available tomorrow afternoon after 3 and Saturday morning. So I am hoping to have this resolved by Saturday, so I can send her the final thing for the registration info on the website. And at that point, then it will be posted on the Rauscher Farm site with a link. Remember, we had that little itty bitty link. Okay, does that make sense? So it's the same policy. It's just that I have to make sure I deduct the top number from what's on the website on the library site. Otherwise, we end up with like too many registrants and not enough space, basically. Okay. Is that okay with everyone? Did I express it clearly?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So still continuing on because that's sort of communication outreach, as well as programming. Okay, so you know that the Rauscher Farm Fun Facts did actually go out with the Joe Pye weed. Good. Purple Roostrife bad. There'll be another one coming in October. Okay, now you know how hard sometimes everything can be to actually accomplish, how long it takes and all. This next one, I have never known anything so easy peasy. And this is the recognition of Rauscher Farm around the town. So after our last meeting, I actually suddenly realized there was another box. I had taken a photograph, as I explained, in front of Walgreens. But then I realized just on the lights, just a bit further down, there was another box, unpainted. So it turns out when Phil Duffy passed me on to Lee Abdullah, who was the person who orchestrated all of these visuals around town, the mural in Depot Square, the other painted boxes like Fuller Field on the corner of High Street and Church Street, and the others. There are others. So it turns out that those boxes and the one at the corner of Brook and Main Street are town owned. So it's no problem getting permission to do this. And when I talked to Lee, I also said I would like to reach out to Cheryl Hughes, and it turns out that she did one of the boxes. I'm not sure which one. And Lee really liked working with Cheryl. So voila, everyone. We have got some real estate waiting to have Rauscher Farm's presence on it. We will need to agree on close of the time what it would look like. And I have to run that by Lee just to make sure, obviously she has to make sure there's nothing inappropriate going up. But we did it, right?
Good.
Can you believe this? And Alan, your point about the building on the corner of High Street and Water Street, okay, just as well we didn't go that because now the town is pushing that particular spot to resolve having something profitable put there. Okay, so we would have lost out on that anyway, and then suddenly up pops another one. So there you go, everybody. Success.
Good.
Cheryl Hughes is here next summer. Is that how that works?
She's a snowbird.
Yeah.
So she spends part of her time in Florida and part of her time in the cooler climes up here. So the next step that I have is I have to first see if she would be interested in being the artist for this project and to ascertain the times when she leaves Florida, which may not be spring, it may be actually a bit later when the the heat of Florida hits. So that if Cheryl is, interested and willing, Cheryl once offered to do a paint night fundraiser for Rauscher Farm. So I'm hoping that she will be, interested in this project and find out what she costs and all the rest. So, but she devotes her time now. She was the Tinker's Cart shop on High Street for many, many years. And then when she retired from being a retail person, she's devoted herself exclusively to her artwork. And she's done Maine festivals, Maine art shows, and so we're in motion. All right. Does that meet with your approval that I now go and approach Cheryl?
Sounds good to me. That's great. Good job.
Okay. I don't have any info on violations. I don't know. Dave is usually the person who tends to see these, if there is any. Dave?
No, I've seen nothing.
Okay. All right. So far we know of no violations. Okay, permissions. Now you'll see that I've been sent an email by someone who is, and this is tricky. I do appreciate the dilemma. He wants to do night sky viewing away from light pollution. But we have a dawn till dusk. That's the town. There aren't people wandering around in the dark unless we have agreed on a particular program, and in which case we are then overseeing that program in the dark, which we have done before, because that has to be special permission and that has to be granted by the Conservation Commission. Now, what this gentleman I think is looking for is just a carte blanche, just to come anytime he likes and just do this. So unfortunately, we can't, according to how the night areas of Rauscher Farm are set up, we can't give him that. But I did want to inform you that he had asked, and I was thinking that an appropriate way to respond would be to explain that we can't just give this open affirmation of him coming up anytime. But then we might look for a night event and tell him. The other tricky part about Rauscher Farm is it's not as dark as some places can be, given that, that there's the street that is lit, and there are various abutters that are lit. So it's not finding a completely dark spot is not just arriving on Rauscher Farm. It needs to, be researched. So so your thoughts on this?
Do you know if that person is looking for other dark sites or I don't know what other places are used by people with telescopes looking for dark sites.
He's mentioned in the email that he's further out west and it's hard. West of the state. I mean, he's relatively local, right? But that's a good point. I don't know if there are listed dark sites, anyone?
Well,
I don't know of any.
The trouble is, it's not as granular as just like going to a few acres where we don't have lights, because all of the ambient light that's all around us from all the cities and towns and highways and houses and whatever. I mean, there's light pollution everywhere now, unless you can really get out into the country, I mean, like we were down in Virginia those years ago and stepped outside, and suddenly there was an entire sky full of stars because we were, in the mountains, but and not a lot of civilization around us, but just going down the street to the reservoir or something, because there's not a lot of houses there, you still have all of that ambient light pollution anyway. I mean, I don't object to the guy wanting to go out and letting the guy go out if he wants to have an event, but he's not going to get a whole lot better sky there than he's going to get anywhere else around here.
I know somebody who's done dark sky observation in their kind of designated dark sky areas. This person goes way up north in Maine to get dark
Yeah.
sky. It's
Yeah.
tough. That's in the
Yeah.
coastal New England.
And I know there are,
So,
urban, I mean, there's programs now for some cities where they're having motion sensor lights and hoods over street lights and things like that to help, but it's still, I mean, look around us, look any
Mhm.
place you want out in the dark, you're gonna see a glow on the horizon if you can see the horizon any place,
So,
A
how
quick,
about if, yeah, sorry, Christine.
a quick
Yep.
Google search says that Mount Wachusett and Petersham State Forest provide good dark sky locations
Okay,
as alternatives.
let me
Fantastic.
just, let me just make a note of that. Mount Wachusett.
And Petersham State Forest.
Let me point out that Mount Wachusett is closed at dusk, but you can walk up to the summit. And the reason I know this is because of certain aurora chasers will publish their pictures taken from the top of Mount Wachusett, but they have to hike up there to do it.
So
Okay,
the
yeah.
road is closed, but the public is still allowed if they want to walk.
Yeah,
That's my understanding, yes.
okay, so the road to drive is officially closed. Is that what we
That's
think?
my understanding.
Okay.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I've never verified it. That's just what I have gathered.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it's the Summit Road is closed after October,
Okay,
but the ski area is open till 9:30, but I would assume at that point you're well-lit trails and parking
Right,
areas
yeah.
and all that.
yeah, yeah. But I wonder about the Petersham State Forest. Is,
There's a site called Go Astronomy.
low astronomy?
Christine? I think Christine is frozen.
Which is,
Yeah.
I mean, Christine's frozen?
She's not, I'm not seeing any activity, Christine.
Christine's frozen. But can she speak? Christine, can you speak? Oh, Christine's frozen. Okay, 1, 2, 3, we still have a quorum. And
I
Christine
said
may,
she'll drop out and come back.
and she may just unfreeze.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be
All right,
good.
but okay, but just to consolidate these obsoirs here. Oh, she's gone. Okay, so what we're saying is, we don't necessarily think that Rauscher could anyway solve this, Lena. And then we have the problem of permission. But however, we wonder if he's checked out astronomy and Petersham State Forest. How about that? So we acknowledge that it's very tough, but we probably can't solve this problem. And to mention the point of Jim's point that there's even not just light from Clamshell Road, there's ambient light from everywhere, etc. And being a small property, we're not acres and acres and acres of moving towards darkness, as in Maine. Would that seem like an approach, sort of, to reach out to him and say unfortunately we don't think we can help that much, but we hear because of the following reasons. However, have you thought about Petersham State Forest, etc.? I don't think the Mount Wachusett is worth mentioning at this point, given that the road is closed. Is that okay? Everyone?
I think so,
Sounds
yes.
Yeah, okay. All
I
right,
have to
so,
drop off call.
okay, well, thank you very much. So, okay, so
Yeah.
you're leaving at
Okay, see you, Dave.
Good, Dave. Yeah.
thanks,
Bye-bye.
Dave.
Hey,
Jump off
actually,
in a
before I
couple
go, could I tell you something out of order,
Yeah.
please?
Yes, please do.
Glo, I just wanted to let you know, I talked to Kevin Bartlett yesterday, and
Yes,
he mentioned that winterizing the house is on his agenda, on his plan, so he's aware of it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
yes, thank you very much. Likewise, I
Okay.
bumped into him the other day and said I'd be emailing him to
Okay.
remind him. But thank
And
you.
we have to,
Okay,
Yep,
so-
okay.
and we have to be sure to disconnect hoses and things after that too, so we don't freeze a pipe or anything.
yes.
Yep.
Well, we should probably talk right now about, okay, because we're in October, right? Do we
Okay.
need
I'm
the
dropping off, guys.
hoses? All right, thanks,
Bye,
Dave.
Dave.
See you,
Thank
Dave.
you.
And I
Thank
have to
you.
drop
Bye-bye.
off in like 4 minutes, so.
Okay, well, my question is, do we need the hoses from this point
I
on?
I would suggest if it's not full right now, we make sure the water barrel is full down in the pollinator meadow just in case we need it.
Okay,
And that will get us, if we have to spot water any of our new plants, we'll have plenty of water then and you know, and we can always dump that barrel later. And I think
okay,
right now it's either 3/4 or 2/3 full anyway, so.
okay. So how about I send him an email, not immediately, but in about a week?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, okay. So
And
contact.
whoever among us is up there next, if you just make sure that water barrel is full, then, we're basically ready to go.
And the person who usually does it is Ben Sund, who did it.
Yeah.
Chris McGowan showed him how to do it, and Ben has done it both spring and fall. Um, and was, immediately responsible about when he found a leaky pipe, so we could fix it. Okay. Okay. All right. And the rest, really, given I know you have to go very much too, in terms of programming, I'll, you can read the updates, right? And then I do plan on writing a Clinton cultural grant. There was a deadline of October the 16th. I did touch base with Rob Gagier, gave him a couple of August dates, for a date and then a rain date. Before I thought that the UMass Dartmouth would be in session again. He said, well, I'm not sure when I'd be on vacation, but I said, it's okay. We put these dates in, and then if he's on vacation, we have to change the date. And I would just tell the Clinton Cultural Council, we have done this before when, a presenter was suddenly not available and we had to change a date. It's the program, but you do have to put in a specific date for the application. And I also will put in a budget for promo and design of that particular program too. Because there's also very specific things that have to go in to the promo materials about the Clinton Cultural Council and the no. Okay, so Christy and I will be touching base with you too. Okay, goodness knows if we'll get it, but if we don't ask, we don't try. If we don't get it, certainly for Rob, we will be in a new financial year, so we can put that onto the town, the money that the town gives Rauscher Farm. So that's why, rather than doing it too early I didn't want to do it before the financial year changed. And I also didn't want to risk doing it in blistering heat so no one could breathe, let alone anything else. So, well, is that okay? So it's August. Because that seemed to be when there was a few breathable days. Freshwater jellyfish, I met someone, okay? And I was sitting on the picnic tables. I saw him arrive. He's from Needham. He uses Clamshell Pond a lot. I happened to mention jellyfish. He said, yes, he'd seen them. I said, really? I said, well, when you go now, if you see them again, could you let me know? So he then has sent me, which I will forward to you, a very brief video of little things floating, which then, because we mentioned about more in your own time, and I'm proposing that we have like a 2-week slot to people to encourage them to go and look for the jellyfish. They may or may not show up because they don't necessarily, but to engage in a citizen scientist activity where people go, okay, Dean, where people go and take videos with their cell phones of the clamshell pond jellyfish. So we can revisit this at the next meeting. Okay, so none of this other stuff is anything new, other than a proposed wildlife of Rauscher Farm presentation in the library, using the nature cam images, and that Jim and I would do, and Jim would talk about, because Jim is the one who knows those images, and anyone else is welcome to participate in the presentation. So I am going to try and nail a date for that with the library director. Okay. Haven't yet got a story walk book for your consideration, but we'll work on that. So that was it. Okay. The date of our next meeting is Wednesday, November the 12th, 6 p.m. Any other thoughts? If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Any
I
other
will make a
thoughts?
motion to adjourn.
I second the motion.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of adjourning at 6:56.
Aye.
Hi, Alan.
Yeah. Hi, Gloria.
Hi, Jim.
Okay, I will now press the magic recording button. Pause.